In the previous example, we had just been using these HTML tags as examples of our CSS. And in addition to tags, you can use IDs and classes to be really more specific with your selectors. So let's say we had a particular, I'm going to add in a span here, and I'm going to give it an ID of new span, and close that up. And I'm just going to select this little bit of text within there, and then also I'm going to do another span down here, and I'm going to do a class, and we'll show you what the difference is between classes and IDs and how to use them. So a class is, if you're familiar with CSS, you might use it several times. So we might have a bunch of different classes, and they might be scattered out throughout our content. And with IDs, you're only using ID once within that HTML code on the page. So that's the big difference between IDs and classes. And as well, within the CSS, we've got different ways to identify them. So when we're going back to our CSS, we identify IDs by doing that percentage sign. And there we have a listing. Dreamweaver's giving us that span there. And now we're going to enter in some properties. So let's make the background. So we're going to really just try to make this background white maybe, so that it will stand out from that div background. And again, with backgrounds, there actually are a few different ways that you can use colors within your HTML. So one of the ways that we're just going to cover that off really quickly before we continue. So as you can see here, what I'm using is this hexadecimal type format, and this is what Dreamweaver is returning by default. You can also use things like predefined color names. So I believe aqua is one of them, and this will give us an aqua background. And you can use that anywhere you want to apply colors. So color, again, is going to be that color property. So this is the color of the actual text, and we can use something like the RGB color as well. So picking out that red. So I'm not sure how this is going to really look, but so we've got our ability to use RGB, and then over here is just the alpha color. So the newer, more modern browsers will accept this. The older ones might not accept it, but they'll just accept that RGB color. So this is going to be the same thing as the hexadecimal color. So it's just going to work in the same type of format. And with hexadecimal, you always have that ability to do that short. So you could do the 3 that's short as well. So when we go back out to the page, just going to quickly refresh that, and you can see that the short on the background, now this is a short for purple, and we did the background aqua. So here we've got that background div is aqua, and the color of the font is that reddish color. And this is essentially these are essentially the different options that you have with coloring. And as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of different options here for coloring. So usually I try to stick to the 6 hexadecimal characters, but you see here that Dreamweaver also applies sometimes these shorter ones. So this is white. So same thing as typing in white or doing FFFF. So it's all the same. It's just how you're used to working with the colors. So usually you try to work with one type of format and just try to stick to that. So getting back to our styling with, just going to remove out those changes. So getting back to the styling and how we picked that different ID, and as we had mentioned, IDs are used for only one time within your HTML, and we see that we've got these spans that are used on a regular basis. So if we wanted to maybe, we've got a few options here for classes. So the way that classes work, or I should say classes instead of spans there, so we've got classes, and they can be used anywhere. So you can use that same class, you can use it within a div as well, or you could use it within those h1 tags. So however you want to use the class, you can reuse it over and over again. And all of these properties are going to get applied to any element within HTML that contains this class. So here again, we're going to maybe set a background, and we're just going to type in yellow, so it's like kind of like a highlighted text font, and maybe we'll do a font weight and make that bold, and maybe do a font size and bring that up to 18 pixels. So these ones that have any of these that contain this class are going to now really stand out within our text. So we go back out to the HTML document and refresh it. You can see that in fact it did apply. That was styling values, so it had brought a yellow background, it brought the text up to bold, created resized the text, and when you look at it, you can see that, okay, well the text is still that old text, that font, and the color of the font is still the same. And that's the way that the styling will work, is that whatever, it's the same thing as having default styling, so any of the changes that you make are going to apply to any of the elements that are nested within the original element that has that styling applied to it. So any one of these divs is automatically going to contain this styling as a default, and it doesn't matter when we're adding in additional nested spans in there, or additional nested divs or images or whatever we're adding in here. All of that styling gets applied to the parent, and it propagates down to the children. And so even we're adding in these children, we're just getting those default styles. And if we want to reset it, and we want to clear that out, we can do that within CSS as well. Again, to override any of this parent styling, we'd have to do that within the style sheet, and we'd have to do it within this new nested element that we've created. And that's why the background is being overwritten from here to here. So all of these backgrounds get overwritten. So we're overriding the background of the div, and here we're overriding the background of the div as well, because this one is included within that div. So if it was the other way around, then this background would propagate over this particular one.